84.
84.
Still here.
Question or here is now.
Questioning. Yeah, right.
Questioning over here.
There's the topic of the episode is where's here.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I mean, yeah. I think we should talk about it just because I'm struggling with it right now. I'm struggling with the idea of where here is.
Yeah. To me, it seems like really right about the beginning of the year, things really started to shift, and nothing seems terribly important. Nothing seems. I don't know. It's not like a depressive state type of thing, because it almost sounds like it if I word it like that. But it's like nothing is serious. Nothing's important. It's like, do we keep doing the podcast? It doesn't really matter. Maybe not. It doesn't matter. Do we, do this, do that? Nothing's. The charge to most things is just gone or severely reduced. Is how I would word it. Which really makes it obvious how much of a charge I used to have for all these things. There's like, we gotta record the podcast. Okay, if we miss a week, I don't even care. If we stop doing it, it doesn't matter. It's fun, but it's not like a have to. Which is like, oh, that means it used to be a have to. Which is weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think we started the podcast because we were going through something that I thought it would be helpful to people to hear. So, I think we started it for the right reason.
Yeah, I don't think we started it for the wrong reason. I'm just saying that I did feel some sort of pressure or compulsion that we had to have an episode every week. And now it's like we do, we don't, it doesn't matter. It's lost the charge of whether or not that's a.
Yeah, I guess I never
schedule.
I guess I never thought it was have to. Just because usually we run so far ahead as far as number of podcasts.
We usually
goes.
do.
And so anytime we run behind,
Mhm.
yeah, I guess I don't feel the urgency to record or anything like that. But no, here's what I'm struggling with is, I mean, I can see how this generalized disconnection has been coming with me probably even before the beginning of the year, into even the last year, right? Like there's just this general, as you become aware of out of which space all of your actions come out of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And until you work on pain and trauma, you don't know that all of your actions are coming out of the space of pain and trauma. And so, I think what's happening is this generalized way of being that used to be very comfortable because everything stemmed out of that space doesn't stem out of that space anymore because it doesn't come out of pain and trauma. I'm not saying 100%, but as much. If something's coming out of, right? So it's weird. Maybe the amount of generalized beingness in the present, as it's increasing, the old way of being, do you evaluate or do you in contrast compare to the old way of being?
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point, I think what happens when you're mostly in the present is it just feels very, I don't know if uncomfortable is the word. In comparison to 40 years of being a specific way, right?
Mm-hmm.
I say 40 years. I don't know if I mean, obviously the pain body sets in from the childhood standpoint, but I don't think we actively start facilitating most of our actions out of it until like our late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, I think yes, the pain body is there in the childhood, but it's not as active. There's still this childhood innocence, and
Yeah.
you're doing things for the beauty of the thing, right? You're riding a bicycle because it's just it's just a way to enjoy life. It's not, I don't know.
But you don't even think it's a way to enjoy life. You're just enjoying life.
Right.
That's the difference.
It's not even a conscious, deliberate thing when you're young. You're just out living life without trying to live life.
Yeah.
There's no trying. You're just doing. Well, maybe we were that. Maybe there's no doing. You're just being.
Yeah, it's being. And
Right.
as you recognize the pain and trauma that you have been living out of, right?
Yeah.
Let's say in like early 20s and then on, it kind of sets in as a way of being for me. I think for some reason, I wonder why it sets in as just a way of being. It coincides with me meeting you, so maybe I know you noticed that, and I know you didn't verbalize it, but
Well, mine was definitely earlier than that.
No, I obviously remember being in scarcity, right? Or like functioning out of scarcity and unsafety way before you. But I think when you hit 20 and you move out on your own, at least that's when I moved out on my own, right? When I hit 20, like all of the pressure of having to manage a household and at the same time living out of a pain body space, because then your pain body space basically becomes the managing factor of your household. How you manage the household comes out of your pain body.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because so if my thing was on safety and lack, then the household has to run in safety and abundance. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm chasing my trauma when I start to manage my own household.
Yeah. I was very aware when we first moved into the apartment. Well, before we moved in the apartments, I lived in a house with some dudes, and it was really cheap. It was like $300 a month, and that wasn't anything. But then when we moved in together, now there's like, we have to, the rent was more. It wasn't a lot, but it was more. And then, we have to get all the food, and we have to, it was all on us. And I was very aware of, part of adulthood is you really do have to go work because you really do have bills that if you don't pay, you lose the apartment that you're in. And, if you want to eat and now you need gas. And, I don't remember if we had to pay for electricity or water. I don't remember. But, it's like,
no, I don't think so.
There's
internet.
Like internet. Yeah. But I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, these things really add up. And then there's, insurance and all these ridiculous things that you have to have that, there, you can't eat insurance, but you got to have it to have a car and, car payments or whatever it is. And the reality of it really, really hit only after we moved in together. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is part of adulthood. And it's neat and it's empowering, but it's also scary. And it really kind of set in and really stuck with me, even when we got better jobs and we made more money and we got a house and we, got cars and we were never hurting financially, but it still sat with me that like, there's this like weird responsibility type. It was a weight. It was a weight. It had always been a weight.
Is it still?
No.
When did it disappear being a weight?
It had been fading for the last few years, but the beginning of this year is just a night and day from before and after.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like, did those things physically change? No. If we don't make money, do we lose the house? Yeah, I guess that's true, but it isn't like the charge of it. The weight of it is not there.
But the weight would have been coming out of a childhood trauma of some sort.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was our reality, and we were experiencing it for the first time as we became adults and moved out on our own. But it was something that was already embedded energetically
Right.
as a thought.
I mean, I know this was after we had moved out and even after we had bought a house, but my parents going through bankruptcy was kind of like added to that weight, because it's like, oh, it never crossed my mind that they were financially insecure at all. And maybe they weren't. Maybe that just progressed into that. I don't know. But it was like, oh my gosh, people who I thought of as responsible people can lose their house. And so that added to it too. But I was in my 20s when that happened.
Do you think that like added on to the trauma?
Yeah, I do.
Has that been released?
I think so. The trauma of them living with us is a their trauma.
The trauma of them living with us just kind of like exemplified our situation.
Yeah, I know.
But it didn't help it. It just exemplified.
Yeah. I don't know where my thing came from because when I was young, I always wanted to be grown up. I always wanted to be older. I always wanted to have a job and the freedom and the
Annabelle this morning said that. She's like, I can't wait to be older so I can I don't have to go to school. I'm like, yeah, but then you're gonna have to go to work. And she's like, yeah, but I will love what I do. I'm like, all right, let's hope you love what you do.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, I enjoyed what I did. I didn't enjoy where I did it or who I did it for necessarily, but
no, but I think that idea of having an 8 to 5 and working for the man, right?
Yeah.
It has faded away.
Yeah.
Not just and I don't think it's just for us. I mean, you
No.
not haven't been in that position for a long time. I think societally wise.
I think COVID really, really shifted that. And like a whole lot of people are like, oh my gosh, look at this. I can do this from home. I can do this from anywhere just as effectively, maybe more effectively, because now I don't have to blow an hour driving in and an hour driving back. And, maybe I can set my own schedule. Maybe I can use whatever equipment that I want to use instead of the crappy laptop that work gives me or whatever. And then over the last couple of years, there's been this push back to the office. And a lot of people are like, yeah, screw that. No. Then if that means I'm not going to work here, that's fine. I'll go find somewhere where I can work. And like almost everybody I know works remote or at least partially remote. Having the structure of going to the office from this time to that time, and maybe there's a dress code and all this stuff, it just feels so outdated. And
yeah, I don't know what a solution to that is though.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
you and I have a solution. We just run our own business, but
yeah, right.
I guess
which I love it, but it's not without its own challenges too.
Yeah, no, but at the same time, I guess us running our own business stemmed out of control, and like I'm going to be responsible. I am the one who's going to dictate my destiny.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
A lot of that drive. We were listening to Charles Barkley yesterday, right? And it's that drive that comes out of in his case towards basketball, but in our case towards like running a business and being successful. Not successful by the social norms, but successful by like I have a house over my roof. I'm paying my bills. The Chris Helmsworth almost type of a situation, right? Like there's safety.
Well, to me, it was completely freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I mean, I very quickly realized once I had a real, proper, full-time job that, it doesn't matter. I can work at 5%, I can work at 150%, and that will not be reflected in my salary. Maybe I'll get an extra 1 or 2% raise a year. And it's like, this is not the path to riches. Not that our business is the path to riches, but there's no, I'm not being compensated based on my contribution. And I just never felt like I was.
Yeah, but do you think it's because you felt like you were not being recognized for your net worth?
Yeah.
I mean, I think
I mean, there's,
it's like,
yeah.
you almost feel like, if your pain body is not being loved, then
Money was a proxy to love.
yeah.
The more, if you pay me more or pay me in, cause I thought I could have been a really good employee. At the beginning, I was a really good employee and I worked really hard and I contributed a lot out of proportion with the other people on various teams. And,
yeah, but you come out of college and you kind of like disenchanted or enchanted into this notion of like, oh, my pain body is going to be solved the second I get out into
absolutely.
my career, right? So if you start the path in your college with like, oh, going to college is a solution to my pain body, or not obviously subconsciously because you're not recognizing that the college is a solution to your pain body, right? Then you believe that by the time you graduate college and you go out into the world, this is, participating in that is going to solve your pain body.
Yeah.
So in my case, it was, lack of control or like lack of income because it offered unsafety, the idea of unsafety. And so I was just chugging along towards how do I design my environment, my income level, my career, my goals, I guess if I had goals, to feel the most safe.
Yeah.
But it's all subconscious. So it's kind of like, later on you're like dumbfounded. Like everybody who we hear right now who's like in this retrospect about their career, they're like, yeah, I would have made different choices if I didn't have this pain body.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would have too. Yeah. There's a life lesson.
Yeah. 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 So going back. As more awareness comes, right? You recognize that the space which has been driving all of your actions is no longer necessary, is no longer active, right?
Yeah. I'm like, what were we talking about? Yeah.
Right. The pain body that caused you to be in a certain job, or the pain body that caused you to feel mistrusting, or the pain body that caused you to have to, I don't know what, or whatever, right? Like in my case, if it's all out of unsafety, like the pain body of unsafety that has driven all of my behaviors, as that becomes apparent and my behaviors are not coming out of my pain body of unsafety, like the behaviors almost don't come. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I do. I really do, because I notice it. It always shocks me, and I've said this before, the whole, oh, look at that. I would have reacted or felt a certain way from whatever the stimulus is. Someone says something, or, I see whatever it is. And it's like, it's weird that that's not there. It just strikes me because, it's like I guess the neural pathway is still there to like, oh, look, there's the stimulus. But then the influx just doesn't happen. And the disconnect is so striking that I noticed that I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of neat. That's good, I guess, because that wasn't really a positive influx that I used to have with that or whatever.
Yeah. And I guess with me, what's interesting is in the previous episode, we talked about like how all action ceases because you're no longer running things out of the pain body, right? You're not reacting to things, and you're just basically initiating things from a different space. But like the only space that technically warrants action is the space of love, right? But in the past, a lot of the actions would come out of the need to fix it because you feel like, oh, this either does not have love in it, or this does not have, or this is wrong in some way, and so therefore I'm going to insert betterment into it. Do you know what I mean? That seems positive, but it's still out of the judgment of it being lesser than.
Right. Which is, go ahead.
Yeah, but then you recognize, well, that's also not the right way to be, right? Do you know, like, because that's not the case, right? Everything is flowing out of the intent to get into love. So, right. So by the time you recognize all of these patterns, like, okay, if it's happening, it is happening because it is trying to get into equilibrium. And then if it's happening because it needs to be in equilibrium, then it needs to happen because equilibrium will come out of it, or it's just an opportunity for equilibrium. And so by the time you see through all things are being there as a way towards love, that, this might not seem like love, but this is a process towards love, then like no action arises or is necessary. And then it's a really strange, this is what I'm struggling with now. It's a really strange place to be, to see everything as perfect. And I know perfect is really strange to say right now, because like in the past, I would have seen like, oh no, this needs to be fixed and that needs to be fixed and this is wrong and that's wrong. And somebody should do something about that. Somebody should do something about that. But when you see everything on the path to balance and equilibrium, and this is just the way it gets there, then like that beingness and presence is just like it. And it's partially uncomfortable because I have, I've never been in that space before.
I see. I bounce in and out of that, and the out of that is like if I'm walking down the street and I see some 10-year-old kid kicking a homeless guy, it's like I'm going to go try to stop that. I'm going to do an action in order to change something in the world because I don't think that this is right. There's my judgment. This is bad. I need to go fix this.
Yeah, but it's just responsibility of being a human being in order to
but like
that's like you would interfere, not like you're bad and you're doing the wrong thing. You would teach them what love is.
I would hope so. It's not. Yeah, it's not go beat up the little kid.
Yeah, but right. There's a lesson into what is love.
Right. It's how can I bring love to this violent situation? Right. Stop the violence. Are you okay? Hey, can we, why are you doing that? Well, let's talk about, whatever.
Realize right now when you bounce between that, the reason why you would bounce back is because once again, you are coming out of your pain body.
Right. And I want to exert control in the world to take the things what I think are wrong or bad or not right or could be better.
But because there are influxes within you.
And I want to fix them in some way based on what I think is right.
Yeah, but that's an influx based on your pain body.
I know that.
Right.
I know that. I guess the way you worded it is, no action, everything is perfect. And it's like, well, there's an action there. The action is to bring love to it. But
the action to bring love to it could be complete disengagement.
Just let him keep kicking him.
What I mean, to some extent, yeah. Why are you responsible for stopping him kicking him? Why is that your responsibility? I'm not saying I'm right in this. I'm just saying let's explore that topic. Why is that your responsibility?
Because I don't know. I happen to be there. And I happen to be able to. I'm in a circumstance where I happen to be the person who's able to bring love to the situation.
Okay, but what does that mean in this case to you? Like, I think you're misreading the situation. What does bring love to the situation is?
I mean, I have some empathy for the homeless guy.
Because?
Right? I don't know. I mean, maybe because they, homeless people as in general are not seen. Right. They're not. I'm picking a homeless guy just as an example, but it doesn't matter if it's who it is. But in this example,
no, you purposely pick a homeless guy because to you that's the pain body you're still struggling with that is running wild.
No, yeah, homeless people are not seen. They're overlooked. They're devalued, and so if they're getting abused, then it's like I've never been homeless. I can't relate in this lifetime, but I can really empathize with that. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have branded yourself as homeless.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, your pain body deep down is basically a complete reflectory nature in symbiosis with homelessness. They're unloved, they're unseen, and they have no one there to support them
Right.
or love them.
And so if I can protect, if I can bring some love to that situation, then
That's bringing
there I
justice to you.
I'm bringing love to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this case, as a positive action of keeping the kid kicking a homeless guy is not there out of the goodness of that. It is there to help yourself as a child.
Right.
So in that case, you're totally engaging in that action. In fact, you even came up with that scenario because you're still looking for a resolution of why you do not want to feel unloved and unseen and unwanted.
Yeah.
So if there's an influx to that right now, then that's probably something that it has not been let go.
Yeah. Right. It's one of those, it's still the right thing, but that's probably not the right reason.
Yeah, but I think you and I have discussed it plenty of times. If that is not in resonance with you, right? If that is not your reality, if that is not the trait which you're carrying into the world, as I'm unseen, I'm unwanted, and unrecognized, and unloved, you would have not even see that situation. Do you see what I mean? That would not even be reality of Earth if that is not the resonance in which you're.
There's that too.
No, but that
Right.
is the only thing that matters. There's that too. That is the only thing that matters.
Right.
Is if you are not bringing reality into your fruition, you're not, because the truth is your intention to bring stuck energy to the surface is the resonance that you're vibrating at that facilitates your reality, facilitates what you see in the world. So if you're walking on the street and you see a kid kicking a homeless person, that is your designed reality based on your body's desire to release the stuck energy and allow you to feel this influx of like, oh my gosh, holy shit, look at this wrong in the world. I'm going to make it right. Because you have yet to make that right with yourself.
Mm.
Right. You have yet to soothe your child self that is walking around facilitating and designing the world where homeless people are being kicked by children. Do you see what I mean?
I specifically picked a child because it's like, well, if it's some big adult, then maybe there's some physical danger in confronting that. But I tried to craft a scenario where it's like, well, I can stop a child from kicking a homeless guy.
Yeah, but the design of the scenario within itself, psychotically communicates that break, whatever that break is that you're trying to fix within yourself. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
some work to do.
Yeah. So, if you think about that scenario and you remove this influx that you feel, that
Mm-hmm.
you're still not letting your child heal from being unseen and unwanted and unloved. If that's not at the top of your awareness, because basically, if you're seeing that in the world, that means that is the top of your awareness, right? Like, top of mind awareness is basically like what you see everything as. Like if you're a hammer, everything is a nail.
Mm-hmm.
To you, if you're vibrating at I am vibrating and I'm unloved and unseen and unwanted, and I'm not free, right, to do what I want, because homeless people would not be free to do what they want because they have this artificial barrier on their freedom. Then that would be what you're quite literally designing your proximity to reflect.
Yeah.
Right. But if you recognize that and you release that, one, I would heavily rely on knowing that would not be anyone's truth. The circumstances where children are beating up homeless people on streets would not be the case at all, right? The circumstances of homeless people being on streets would not be the case if the resonance of that is fixed cumulatively, right? If you could cumulative, if each one of us takes responsibility and addresses our own resonance of why that is our reality, then it would not be our reality. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the scenario with that Beaver's Bridge, right? Right. the residents of the community was in distress because the bridge was supposed to solve some sort of fear.
The dam?
The dam was supposed to solve the fear, right? And so the cumulative effect of that fear was like, oh my gosh, here's all the list of things that will happen unless we build this dam. Let's say it's a 3-year, 5-year project that facilitates fear to have this dam be needed. Right. But the second the community or the cumulative nature of reality goes, look, we have it resolved because we have the architects that designed the dam and we have the budgets to do so, and now it's just a matter of execution, right? And the cumulative fear of that dam being needed has come down enough, right, to where it wasn't at the top of like fear-based awareness, to where it was just vibrating out of control, and that was the only thing that was important, to where the solution then came out of the fact that people let that go. People let that go. So as more budget got cleared, as the architects designed their thing, as the community or whatever the cumulative resonance of everybody who was involved in that dam project, or even the community who was talking about the dam and the importance of the dam, as the resonance of that fear has calmed down, the need for any action or budgeting or anything stopped. And then the solution presented itself on the outside. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I think like people who are like into the news and current events are more susceptible to that. Because, I imagine if you go and you pull up the news, it's all bad. There's the wars, and then the homelessness, and then I don't know, politics. Who knows? I don't know. There's probably all kinds of terrible stuff on the news. There's never good stuff on the news. That's the whole idea of the news.
Well, the only reason you're watching the news is if you are in trauma of not knowing, because it feels unsafe.
Right.
There's no reason to participate in the news if you do not have trauma about safety.
You have to be in the know so that you
feel safe,
feel control, maybe so that you can share it. Maybe, who knows?
No, so you're prepared for all the unknowns.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, if somebody, I would challenge somebody to give me a good reason of why somebody would watch the news.
Right. I mean, the reason is so that you're informed, but that's just
because you feel unsafe otherwise.
Yeah.
There's not a positive reason outside of pain body to watch the news.
Yeah. I haven't touched a newspaper in decades.
I don't think there's newspapers.
I don't know, or turned on the news or visited the CNN or whatever. It's, I'm still here. I don't think the news is healthy in and of itself. I think that's probably not helping any of that for the same reason, is because that's just reinforcing. There's the pain body of, I feel out of control. I need to learn everything so that by watching the news. And then B, you're going to see all this crappy stuff that's just going to double down on manifesting more crappy stuff.
Well, no.
You turn on the news, you see the war. The war is in your reality.
You need to reverse. You need to reverse that. I think that's the problem with the world, is that we're not reversing the responsibility. You need to reverse that responsibility.
How's that?
You are vibrating at the frequency of war. The reason why you're turning on news is because you want to find something in the world that is resonant with that frequency. And then the cumulative effect of everybody who's in resonance with the war within, right? Because they're not doing any personal awareness work, who tune on the news and who dive in the cumulative nature of war, are propagating a new war. They're propagating war. The responsibility solely lies on each individual soul,
right?
Being in that resonance.
I didn't mean that the war exists because the news reports on the war. That's not what I was trying to say.
But the war does not even exist because there's such thing as war. The war only exists because individuals participating in that idea are vibrating that within themselves to begin with. And then the outcome of each individual and then the cumulative nature of that consciousness then facilitates the war. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It is quite literally to the individual.
And then the news is a way for people in people in that vibration to kind of share it with each other.
Well, to continue to stay in that vibration.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Reinforce it.
To reinforce that vibratory nature of things, right? So, but because you're in vibratory nature of war, and then the war then becomes the truth of your country or your region, right? The news reports on it, right? Because it is the cumulative effect of that region. And then you then dive into making yourself feel better by being informed about the war, by having to watch the news, blindly not recognizing that what caused this war to be there is because you were already in the vibratory frequency of war. And then you watching the news is propagating that, but you think it's somehow making things better by making you aware of the war so there will be less war.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So because
it's having the opposite intended effect.
Yes, but because there's no personal responsibility being taken that I am 100% responsible for the reality that I face, we externalize it to, I could be walking down the street and see a kid hit a homeless person, and then I have to do something about it. That is your manifested reality, right? No time ever would I have invented that story and even thought of it as being a plausible, even like, okay, this is totally crazy, but I'm going to come up with a story. Do you see what I mean? That only originates out of your personal unprocessed pain, body, and trauma that you're resonating with, and in fact creating to see how you would feel about it. And in this case, you're even blind to the fact that, it's hitting the unloved, unwanted, and unseen, and completely disrespected and ignored by quite literally the world, because the world is not even addressing the homelessness situation. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it is, remember Bruce Lipton had that conversation on stage to say that, like, if you're a parent and your child is experiencing X, it is 100% your fault.
Right.
And it's completely on you that your child is experiencing X. Mm-hmm. And then the lady flipped the fuck out. Do you remember? And she had to chase him to the end of the stage, and she had to basically have him take those words back because she wouldn't be able to sleep with herself at night because that was the case. Well, that's true. But like she was losing it because she did not want to take responsibility for any of her actions. He had to soften
it by saying unintentionally.
Yeah, but unintentionally, as long as we choose, it's a choice to not be conscious. Do you know what I mean? That is what he didn't clarify, which would have probably killed her once again. Do you know what I mean? The choice of unintention is the choice into not gaining consciousness. But that's a personal choice. Mm-hmm. So it's still her fault. Even though, do you see what I mean? It's the choice.
No, sure.
It's her fault, one, to actually do that to her child, and then it's still her fault then it's actually twice as bad because she wants to deny the fact that she did that consciously. But she did do that consciously because she chose to be unconscious. Mm-hmm. The choice to be unconscious is a conscious choice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of like a double whammy. The fact that she had to chase Bruce Lipton down and accost him for it and have him take those words back is doubling down on her unconsciousness. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's funny. I don't know why that anecdote is. I mean, it's really sad. But
it's sad. But I see myself. I say all these things because I have experiences blindness myself.
Right. No,
and I have experiences subconscious myself.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
No, we've got an 18-year-old and 11-year-old, and it's like, ooh, especially early on,
we fucked them up.
God knows what we were even doing. Right?
Yeah. And I have, I can spend my lifetime apologizing for all my blind actions, but it is completely on me, and I'm 100% responsible for fucking them up.
Yeah. I'm glad you're taking all that blame.
No,
100%.
No, I am, because my each one of us carries this resonance of the reality that sets in our household, right?
Right.
And I can look back and I can feel what my mother's resonance was when I was a child. And I can feel what my father's resonance was when I was a child. And I can see myself as a cumulative effect thereof, or how fucked up I became out of that resonance. And then how I decided to cope with it, through going back to the positive psychosis in order to be able to survive, right? No blame on them whatsoever. That was just the toolkit that I developed in order to survive. Then come college time, I'm basically like, oh shit, here's my toolkit. I'm going to run with it into the world. And the toolkit is basically, how do I mitigate feeling lost and confused and unsafe as a child, right? And my entire adulthood is basically, I'm a child who feels lost and confused and unsafe. How do I mitigate that? And so that's what you run into the world with. And like that much blindness is so excruciating and painful. But at the time of you running that blindness, you don't realize how painful it is. Right?
I mean, maybe you do. Maybe unconsciously you
In
do.
your
But you
low-
do because you
you're drugging yourself.
you start drinking.
Yeah.
And
You're drugging
whatever.
and drinking and whatever else you're doing. Fucking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. Right. But the pain the amount of pain that you feel towards this scenario of a child hitting a homeless person, right? That is the pain, right? That's the story that you're coming up in order to allow yourself to feel what you actually feel inside.
Right. Because I'm like, okay, if I had come up with a different example, I'm walking down the street and I see a piece of trash. And it's like, okay, I can just pick up this piece of trash and put it in the garbage can instead. And there's no charge there. And it's like, I'm, on one hand, I'm still doing an action because I think the trash shouldn't be there. And I think the world would be a better place if it was, in the garbage can instead. So on one hand, it's kind of the same thing, but it's not. I can see how that's like, oh, this is just from I want the world to be more beautiful. This is coming from a place of love. This is right. I can see how that example, while you can draw parallels, of course, any example you could draw parallels. There's something wrong. I'm going to do an action to fix it and make things better based on what I think better is, right? Both examples are exactly that.
Yeah.
But there's no charge in that for me. That's just like, oh yeah, okay, pick it up, throw it away. Not a big deal. But now the world is slightly more beautiful. It's like the Zoroastrianism, like, oh, do you see something? Is there something? Do you see something wrong in the world? Yes or no? If no, everything's great. If yes, is there something you can do about it? If no, okay, well, you can't do anything. If yes, do it. Okay, just do it.
Yeah, but the teaching of Zoroastrianism came before we started behaving out of our pain body and convoluting something wrong with the world and actually something wrong within my world.
That's the difference.
Right. So like the teaching is great, except that back then people were aware of their internal well-being. And post the invention of Zoroastrianism, we are completely unaware of self. There's no such thing as first become aware of self. Actually, in fact, due diligence on your end is to disengage from the world and take care of your shit for as long as it takes. I mean, fuck, go into a fucking cave. Like that. Maybe that's why people go into caves. Is you're a menace to society because you're doing zero due diligence, becoming aware of where your actions are coming from.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is destroying the world because you're vibrating hate, you're vibrating war, you're vibrating unsafety, you're vibrating prejudice. And if that's your vibration and that is what you're adding to the cumulative effect, then, you should be ashamed of yourself. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that is the approach that I would take from the tenacity of responsibility that one has to do in order to go, oh shit, the world is fucked up and everybody's out there to blame. And I don't even know where I'm going to go protest and I'm going to fight cancer and I'm going to show the people, what the right thing to do because, the world is wrong. Well, no, if this is your reality, you are wrong. You're fighting, you're struggling, and you're taking zero accountability because if you're seeing that in the world, it's on you. And so if everyone just secluded and not chased Bruce Lipton and took the responsibility after they heard that, then we would not be in the situation that we are right now. But because we're in a situation that we're at right now, I think the only thing that it's doing is it's causing everyone to be so influxed because it's forcing everyone to look in more and more and more and more. So within itself, that is beauty, right?
Mhm.
I don't have to participate in the news. I don't have to participate in kicking off the homeless people. I don't have to participate in, the soup kitchens, and I don't have to participate in, political conversations. The only thing I have to participate in is if I'm facing something that makes me feel uncomfortable in the world, that I feel like I can't do something about it, or I feel like is wrong, then why is it I'm responsible? What is it that's within me that is making me responsible that has this as my truth?
I think if people think about the type of charities or causes or something that are important to them, they'll draw the parallel of, oh, that's important to me because I see myself in that. Oh, because my mother died of cancer, so cancer is really important to me. Because there's obvious there are parallels there, but it's
Yeah.
but oh, my mother died of cancer, therefore it's important to me. It's still one step removed from I'm terrified I'm going to get cancer, so I need to go fight cancer.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the obvious one.
Homelessness is important to me because, obviously these are people and they need to be taken. True, but it is deeper than that, at least for me, right?
Yeah, in your case, right? Remember you wanted to have a whole episode on homelessness.
That was, I don't know.
Right.
I don't remember if it was you or I that came up with that and texted it.
I might have, but I think I came up with it of like, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of conversations. There's a lot of real conversations to be had about homelessness. And then there's the responsibility conversations to have about homelessness.
Yeah.
And I think if we have a lot of responsibility conversations first, we might not need to have the other conversations. It's the beaver dam, right? It's the beaver dam scenario, right? Mm. If the fear of the cumulative inserted into the morphic field and everybody's vibrating the fear and the need, and look what this is going to do. If we don't do this, this is what's going to happen. And then it takes 4 years and okay, fine. Everyone finally comes down because we have plans for the beaver dam or for the real dam. And then because the morphic resonance of the fear comes down, the situation completely disappears.
Yeah.
That is what wars are. When the cumulative effect of whatever that war was brought up and to begin with dissipates, the war will cease to be.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Another way to word it is if there's something that outrages you, it's just it's outrageous to you. There's something very personal that you can relate to in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, but I know you're not there, but I'm there. So let's go back to my half of it. When you see through that, when you take on the personal responsibility and you do due diligence to let go of the trapped energy and to heal your inner child, and you're no longer designing homeless kicking children scenarios. One, I would say it would ceases to be, right? Because the universe takes care of things that you're not designing. Because it's basically you're architecting your way into that reality, right? You're adding the juices into that reality. Sooner or later, when you don't have these influxes, right? Like, can you draw yourself into that scenario? There's a space that I find myself in where maybe this is what it is. It is slightly unsettling to be in that space on your own because the world is not there. And so any remnants of the pain body that I feel of being completely different and completely unlike anybody else, and then from elsewhere, becomes even more apparent when I don't feel like anybody else. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I think so.
And so the remnants of the pain body that I have left over of where I don't belong and I don't fit in gets highlighted once more. But at the same time, in this case, it is not out of a negative thing, it's out of a positive thing. Do you know what I mean? Like in the past, let's say, okay, in Ukraine, when I would feel ostracized because I was a Jew, right? Oh, and I don't fit in because there are 3 Jews in the city and everybody knows who those Jews are. I mean, quite literally, like it's a city of 500,000 people and everybody knows these 3 Jews. Do you know what I mean? And you feel, you completely feel alienated and not, like you don't belong because everybody in a city of 500,000 knows who the 3 Jews are. And so like that is feeling the net difference and separation from a negative thing. You feel like you need to fit into this mold because otherwise you feel unsafe of being outside of it. Does that make sense? And now I don't feel like I need to fit into any mold because I don't feel the need to belong. But being in this space of complete peace and harmony and seeing things and the beauty also makes me feel that same feeling of not belonging. But not from the standpoint that I need to dive in and try to belong somehow, like pretend like I'm not a Jew, I don't know, or like hide the fact that I'm a Jew. Because in Ukraine, like my mom would hide the fact that I was a Jew. But in this case, from that net resonance of like, oh, it's just an incredible place to be, but I'm on my own. Do you know what I mean? And so there's that like longing for more people to experience that. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, the longing is not there out of like, because I need to save the world from themselves, but from like, oh, I wish people felt this much beauty in the beingness, if just in existence of isness that is not painful due to their own design.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah.
I know that is completely different conversation that you're having with me. So we're on 2 different places right now, I think. So I don't know. Right, because in that space, I don't feel the need to go and save the world from itself. But I just have this innate wish for somebody or anybody or everybody to experience wholeness because they see that within themselves.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Unrelatable though?
No, I can relate. Because I mean, I'm not all the way there, but I'm a lot closer than I've ever been. And I'm there some of the time. And I'll drop out of it with homeless people or whatever. But no, I can relate.
There you go. This is an example that's really easy. I think that, because the universe kind of gave us these experiences at the same time. So both of us can bounce back on them and have a conversation, but I'd be able to have it from the 2 different standpoints. Like whenever we did ayahuasca, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that to me, like, first you were in whatever experience that you were guided, but then at the end, like after it started to wear off, the only thing that I was aware of is everybody is sitting here and having this cumulative experience of lesser than, but then there's this innate oneness that is actually within the circle and then really within the world. Like you feel that oneness.
What do you mean experience of lesser than?
Why do people go have ayahuasca?
Oh, because they're searching for something?
They're stuck. They're searching for gnosis, but they don't even know what that is. Like they're searching for self. They don't even know that they're searching for self. And then therefore they go into ayahuasca experience. No, I know there's those people who go into ayahuasca to cure addiction because it breaks that addiction cycle. So like if you're going into that But the addiction cycle is only there because you're not one with self.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So some of them go into it knowing that from the physical standpoint, ayahuasca does something to break an addiction cycle, but not recognizing that the reason why the addiction cycle is there is because they're not one with themselves.
Right.
So this kind of interesting. I find that very funny.
Right.
But on the
it's the same thing, but it's like, oh, we've put a step in the middle.
Yeah. Right. You know, you and I went into ayahuasca. At least I went into ayahuasca because I'm like, oh, I want to have this experience. Everybody keeps on talking about something, and I want to have this. I want to know how it feels.
Yes, I was wildly curious about the experience of it.
And if something comes out of it for me, or like it sheds something within me, I had no expectation. But people are like, oh, you know, you have this profound journey and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any definition of what that is. And what came out of it for me was that how much personal separation we have from self where we do not feel love. Right? We feel separated from love, from self, and then self is love, right? So because we have separation from this higher essence of us as a soul that is pure consciousness of love, we walk around lost trying to find love, right? You know, and then we label it as mommy love or like spouse love or girlfriend love or boyfriend love or cat love or dog love or whatever, right? Or like friendship love. Do you know what I mean? We're searching around for love, but in essence, is the only thing we're searching for is not feeling the internal love of ourselves with ourselves. Because the second you have that, that is actually the real answer. And the only thing that can fill the hole of any lack of love is you loving yourself.
Yeah.
And then recognizing your conscious awareness of the universe and oneness with the universe. And then that complete love of isness that is you, that is the essence of you. And only then can you find love in your spouse and in your boyfriend and your cat and your dog. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So
It's
it is, love is not ever externalized. It is always an internal feeling of self with self. And when you go into an ayahuasca experience, I think I would wager to say majority of the people don't feel love. And they're searching for something, but they don't know what that is. It's just love of self with self.
Yeah.
And then the second you get love of self with self, you connect to the universal consciousness of love. That is actually you. And then it's just overwhelming and never expanding. And then you're like, fucking shit, you don't need to do anything because I'm at oneness.
Right.
I'm at peace.
It, like the ayahuasca, it really helps you see that. The mushrooms do too. And that it gets you out of your own way.
Yeah. But at the end, what was so obvious for me was that we're all here and we're not feeling love because we're separated. We separated self from love. Each one on the very individual basis took the idea of what it means to be love and feel love and it being is love. And we took that away from ourselves. And we designed this very narrow narrative where we're not love and we're not loved and we are not one with love and we're separated from love, you know, for whatever reason. And the males and females have different interpretations of that. And we're just walking with that false belief as our truth. And the ayahuasca strips the shit away. And then you're like, fuck, I am like one with the universe and the love and, you know, the great mother and the creator and myself. And there's no difference or separation between me and the blade of grass and the ants and the moon and the coyotes and Jupiter. Do you know what I mean? And you feel this like oneness that is you in love with everything and everything being perfect.
Mushrooms almost does the opposite. It makes it really obvious how much you're not in harmony. And then maybe it then flows into the harmony, but it's like, whereas ayahuasca strips it all away and you feel it, mushrooms is like, it makes it really obvious where the problems are.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I guess both are helpful in their own way. But
yeah, mushrooms are just, every time we have done mushrooms, it's just such a raw and stripping experience.
It really shines the light on, oh, you don't feel loved. Instead of the ayahuasca's, you are loved. to me.
Yeah, no, it's said to me too. And so like, to me, at least in the Western world, the United States, having ayahuasca experience is a lot harder to reach. Like, I think, you can find a shaman and you can go through this, but like, there's all this prep work and all, like it seems like such a thing, right? Versus with mushrooms, you just dive in. Like anybody can find mushrooms and you just dive in, and it's like raw and visceral and stripping. And last time we had mushrooms, oh my gosh,
it was rough.
It was every single time we had mushrooms, it was so rough. But the last time, I think
was the roughest.
I overdosed on them, and it was just the most stripping raw experience I have ever had. And like I realized how putting judgment on it, pathetic and cowardly I am running away from that much pain. And it was so much pain and so much stripping. And it made me realize, oh my gosh, I have spent my lifetime running away from that much visceral pain. But the reason why I bring up ayahuasca is because in that moment, right? Like, I don't know if you had that experience, but at the end, it was so blatantly obvious that, oh my gosh, we're just here and we're utterly lost. And we all don't feel individualized love, the presence of love within us. And so we're walking around lost, trying to find it anywhere, trying to cram in anywhere with alcohol, with Stanley cups, with drugs, with mushrooms, with ayahuasca, because we have separated from the essence of ourselves as love, right? And so when you feel that, when you feel that love that, let's say you felt during ayahuasca, I don't know if you felt that love, there's no homeless kicking children scenarios. There's no war. There's no lesser than. And in fact, everything that would have been seen through that lens is seen through the lens of love. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
So that action that you would take would be nothing other than you see, you might be able to see how, in the past, I would have seen through this lens of pain body to where I would have perceived this wrong because it would have somehow correlated to my personal pain body of not being seen or wanted or taken care of. And in fact, now I'll just see it as a way towards love or a way into love. And sometimes that path is painful, because I have experienced that. And you can offer it light to give it strength, to have it continue on a very difficult journey. But you would not stop that journey. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you would not logic that journey away. You would not fight against it. You would just give it strength to be able to stand on that journey, because at the end of that journey, there's a revelation into love. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the only love you can actually give to some extent is through your own wholeness, an extension of strength that somebody else might be lacking.
Yeah.
At the time of their hard time.
Yeah. No, it's hard to do that properly if it's not from your own sense of wholeness.
Yeah. Because your own sense of wholeness wants to stop the reflectory nature of your personal pain body
as you see it out in the world.
Yeah. Right?
You see all the things that you feel, and then you find examples of them in the world, the homeless people or the war or the whatever. And you're like, I gotta go solve all these problems. When there's the problems right there.
Yeah.
Inside.
Right. But if you are in the world and you see that problem, step one is to go, look, I'm manifesting this somehow. And then find that broken child within. Like, go, oh, look, this is because I don't trust the world, or I feel unsafe. And I would want to engage in this because I project this unsafety onto this scenario.
Yeah.
And somehow I need to save myself as a child from this scenario. Like, the projection is, I am myself. I'm the homeless person on the street. and somebody's kicking me.
Yeah.
That's what you are projecting, right?
We saw that thing on Instagram. It was about, there were a handful of people who had the actual legal name of James Bond and the awful interactions they had with police when they're like, what's your name? They're like, James Bond. And, the police officer doesn't believe them. And maybe they have ID to prove it and maybe they don't. And one guy had the cop pulled a gun on him. And then he like ran the ID. He's like, okay, free to go. And then one guy happened to be black, got sentenced to 60 days in county lockup because how do they word it? He said his name in a funny way.
In a smart alecky way. He was like, he smart alecky off to the police officer.
And it's like, he told the guy his name. The cop didn't believe it. Turns out he was telling the truth the whole time, but the judge sentenced him to 60 days. And I was just outraged by this. And, it took me a little bit, but I'm like, look at that. I'm outraged because here's this injustice being done to someone. And there's a lot to unpack in there. There's the idea that, it's not his fault. His name's James Bond. It's, that's, there's the ridiculousness of it, the injustice, but I could project myself into that situation
because it's not your fault that you're not.
Because it's not my fault. It's not my fault.
It's not my fault that your mother chose not to love you.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Injustice.
And the fact that it who got the jail time? The black guy got the jail time. There's this racism component in there too. It felt unfair to an extreme degree.
But you have to see your own truth in that.
Yes. But I'm like, that's what I was saying earlier. I felt actual outrage at that. And I'm like, ooh, look at this. I'm feeling something. And because I can see me in that situation.
Yeah.
My name's not James Bond, and I've never had an unpleasant interaction with police, but still, yeah.
Yeah, but right. That's your Instagram feed.
Yeah.
That's your truth.
Sure. Right.
Right.
No, it brought me that for that reason.
Yeah, but you have to take responsibility for, in this case, I'm seeing this because there's something for me to learn out of it.
Right. No.
Right. And then there's something for me to uncover to where I can dig deeper into the reflectory nature of my vibrational state and why the world is such.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, like, it's interesting because, like, to some extent, you can go like, okay, there's a lot of sadness into the world that like we have to go through this much personal suffering in order to recognize the love that we all are and already have within. But at the same time, I guess I could look at it of like, oh my gosh, look at the opportunity that we all have to release the personal burden that we're holding that causes us to suffer in order to uncover the love that we already have.
Right. No, I mean, it's really easy to look at it in a negative way, but at the same time, there's a very beautiful, positive way to look at it too. It's it's so terrible. Look at all the stuff we have to go through. Oh my gosh, now it's my job to do it, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can look at it that way. Or you can go, oh my gosh, I have the ability to empower myself. I have the ability to maybe empower others and share this. It's
No, when we were on ayahuasca and I went to the bathroom and I was staring myself in the mirror.
Gosh, in the mirror. That was crazy.
Yeah. If somebody does ayahuasca, make sure you go and find the mirror. You're right, because then you're having conversation with your higher self. That's what basically happens in the mirror. Your higher self is literally talking to you.
Because you're like, who is this in the mirror? I mean, it's me, but it's not me. It's weird.
Yeah. And the conversation that I had with myself, and I think I've said this many times on the podcast, but it was like, oh my gosh, look what you have to put yourself through in order to see the fact that you are pure love, surrounded by love, and is love. And I was like, wow. And it made me feel so small and so stupid, because the essence of that truth in that statement, I could feel that statement. I could feel the love. I could feel myself as love. I can feel the earth as love. I can feel the connection between all of us. The stars, the sky, the moon, the animals, everything was love. And the love was so obvious and so present. But the fact that I had to go through an ayahuasca experience in order to feel that was basically like, look at what you're doing. Look at what you have to go through in order to see the truth that is already there. That isn't that you're keeping away from your own self, right? And this is what I'm struggling with right now. It's so hard to walk around preaching that and knowing that and feeling that all the time for yourself, when the rest of the world is right now more than ever eager to prove to self otherwise. And that's what's happening. The entire world, especially the United States right now, is working its hardest to try to prove to each individual self, our own self, each individual self right now is fighting at its hardest to show to themselves that there is no love. That they're the furthest away from love. They don't know love. They don't want love. They don't know love. They don't even know how to get to love. Nothing is love.
There is no love.
There is no love. They're at its most adamant point right now. And so it's hard to walk around in that resonance, feeling that resonance within yourself, when the rest of the humanity is fighting at its hardest to hold on to that truth and to make that truth so.
Do you think it's just like one of those, the night is darkest right before dawn type of situation?
This is the last battle of the soul.
I don't like that phrase because that's
I
not
don't
accurate.
like it, but it's the last battle of self against self. That's what it comes down to. Everybody is...
the masses are just holding on to grasping at the last straw of,
the
see,
darkness.
There's no love, see?
Yeah. Because, you would have to fall, right? Because the bottom, what is it, when you hit what is the term that everybody uses?
Hard bottom?
Yeah. Like, you have to surrender into the fact that you're choosing not to be love in order to even start the upward battle,
right?
Which is
a hard pill to swallow,
right? But right now,
because then it's like, oh shit, it's my fault, and
yeah.
I have all the blame on me that I am doing this, I'm believing this, I am creating this. It's all on me. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So right now, everyone on the individual level, but therefore it's felt as a cumulative consciousness, is trying their hardest possible to once and for all prove to themselves that there is no such thing as love. And they don't know love, and they don't feel love, and there's nothing they can do to get love. And so the crash will be when you finally stop fighting yourself as love.
Right.
You will quite literally stop fighting yourself as love, because there's no such thing as no love. There's no such thing as you not having love. The only thing that there is you fighting self to not feel love.
Yeah.
And the second everyone chooses to finally give in to the fight of self and go, fuck, I surrender because I don't have the energy, I don't have the capacity to continue to fight self, just literally self. And then you just collapse because the exhaustion has taken over you, because you don't have the power to go on and fight self. You'll see love.
Because that's all that's left.
Because honestly, that's the only thing that was there. It was love trying to break through the surface of yourself being something other than that. And so, yeah, that's what I'm struggling with. I'm struggling with feeling feeling the adamant, relentless pursuit of the cumulative consciousness, trying to make that the truth, and then love going, guess what? I win all the time against you, right? Against you, because your goal is to only see me, and then you're refusing to see me. And then it's like, it's so strange that the people are fighting so hard not to be loved,
Love
not
is
to
this
see love.
irresistible force. It's you can't stop it, but we sure try.
No, and it's that visceral fight is quite literally against love. When, diabolically, the only thing that we're trying to find is love.
Right. It doesn't make any logical sense, but we're all out there doing it.
Yeah. And so the disconnect, the hard time them having is to be able to vibrate in that state. And, like as a child, I was already in that state. And in Ukraine, it was really difficult. And then have everybody else misconstrued and choose to see things as something different. Do you know what I mean? Choose to see things as a battle, as a war ground, as lesser than, as something to be fixed, something to be pushed away, something to be fought against, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then that was the identity I took, was the control was for me to fight it, to run away from poverty, to run away from unsafety, to run away from being bad, to run away from the orphanage, to run away from not being wanted or needed or selected. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Everything was, because all of those things are definitions of not love. If I'm in the orphanage being the bad one and everybody else is getting adopted and I'm not, then that's not love. If I'm unsafe, then that's not love. If I feel like I'm afraid because of all of the unknowns, then that's not love. Do you know what I mean? Everything is not love, right?
Yeah.
And so you're fighting for that narrative to make sure that everything is not love is exhausting. And so when you surrender into everything being love, but the world is still trying to propagate a message that you were very used to, but no longer resonate with.
Right.
It once again feels alienating, but in the same way that I felt as a child. This is how I felt as a child.
Yeah, I see. That
I came into the world that I was trying to prove to itself that it wasn't love. It was very confusing.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
And right now I'm like, oh, I understand that confusion of a child. That, oh yeah, that's why I was so confused. I'm like, why is everyone going? What is this story of Earth? And it was really confusing. The story of Earth is very confusing.
Right.
But this is what I want to point out. Maybe that is what here is right now. And where we're going, where there will be, or is already, but we're just gonna remove the blinders, is a completely different way of being, where once and for all, those who decide to transcend self into love and see it and own it and recognize it and be it in their truth essence, because the only thing they have to do is just select their true essence as opposed to a story of something else. And once everybody selects that, that is where I came from. Like, that was home.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a modern affliction. Like, if you go back 1,000 years more, I think all the indigenous people were already there. I think, the tribes and the small groups of people were already there. And it's some sort of weird side effect of, I don't know, Western culture, consumerism. I don't know. All of that that has, made us fall away from love. the idea that, oh, we need more. Oh, if I only had the new car, then I'd be whole. If I only had the better house, the better job, the whatever, certainly doesn't help it.
Well, no, that's right. Once we have lost the connection to love,
I'm not sure exactly when that was or what started it, but I know it didn't used to be like that.
Yeah.
But, was it, I don't know, was it like that during the Roman Empire? I don't know. But it sure is today, at least in the Western world. Maybe Japan seems closer to it than we are. There's different issues, but
no, the entire thing started when the human race started to go down the path of not knowing self. Right? That's the only thing that is here, is when humanity chose to not know self. Right. I mean, which is what Jesus basically kind of came here to reiterate, like, the reason for suffering is not knowing self. So everything that Western world has brought in is a way to ease the suffering.
A way to ease the not knowing self.
To ease the suffering, but the suffering comes from not knowing self. But the self is love. So not knowing self is simply not feeling love. Right? And so, yeah, like there was a reiteration of human consciousness that really, really chose to dive into the path of unknosis. Right. And it chose to adapt it at its most visceral level and then spiral itself out of control. Quite literally, right? Out of control. And so, going back to like just relying that information of ayahuasca, when you're there in that space and all the barriers of bullshit are removed, like the story is removed, right? Like mushrooms show you the story, ayahuasca removes the story. And so you're sitting there and you don't have the story. And there's not much you need to do.
Right. There's a amazing piece to it.
But in that sense, there's nothing to do. Like, in fact, you're just sitting there in awe of the trees and the stars and the grass and the fire. Like, I was just in love with the fire.
Yeah.
And I was in love with the music. And I was in love with people who were administering the fire and the music. Do you see what I mean? There was no aspect in my being that I did not see love in. Because I was open to self as love. I was open to the universe as love.
Yeah.
And then, my higher self was like, look what you have to go to in order just to see the truth.
Right.
You're not
go to these physical extremes of, borderline starvation in order just to have the blinders removed.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm struggling with. Is I wonder why I'm struggling with it though. Like from the childhood standpoint, I think I spent a long time sitting there evaluating, why is this necessary? Why is this necessary? Just like questioning, why is this necessary, right? Because I didn't understand the goal of Spaceship Earth. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then it dawned on me, like, oh yeah, it's just a very visceral experience. Like, it's just such a real experience. And there was like that I felt like I think I wrote this in my book, that like the portion that I wrote, it was like that it felt so painfully I thought it was unnecessary. Like in my child naive way, to separate from love that much, it was so painful that like as a child I thought, why is this necessary? Like, why is this so much pain and suffering necessary? And then like I guess 40 years in now I realize why. It's because we we want to have this very visceral experience where
Right.
we're not responsible and somebody else is to blame, and we forget what it is that we are, and we forget what it is to be loved, and we forget what it is to be one, and we forget what it is to be whole, and we're just wandering in the woods, lost for 40 years. And then, I guess that was the agenda of Spaceship Earth. But, now the agenda is slightly different. But I'm still kind of like the remnants of the old agenda.
Right. It's weird being the old generation, isn't it?
Yeah. 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 I don't know. Is there a conclusion?
I guess realize that the true nature of reality is just love, and everything that isn't love is some sort of blinders in the way.
That is trying to take you to love, right? The
Right, I
love
mean,
is always pulling you
it's always
forward.
yeah.
The love is always pulling you towards something,
yeah.
right? And like it can be very mild, like an Instagram post, right? Or a story that you invent and then you have to process. Or it can be very visceral, like, a debilitating experience.
Mhm.
And the choice is also yours. The choice of how much awareness are you willing to bring to an Instagram post or invented story
Yeah, right.
would still have you have the same lesson
Yeah.
into love as a debilitating, experience in real life, like in
Yeah.
physical form.
Yeah.
Which is
Car
unnecessary.
accident or terrible disease or who knows what. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But all of that is to showcase to self, how are you missing love in this chunk of your interpretation of reality?
Right.
That's what it comes down to, is you're bringing in something and overlaying it over love.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's very important.
Hiding it
You're hiding love
from yourself.
You're taking love and you're piling on a turd on it. Right. Right. And then, and then the recognition is, wait, this is what I'm doing, which is personal self-responsibility. But then two is, why am I doing it? Why is this my story?
Right.
Like, why is this my invention?
What's the lesson that I'm supposed to learn out of this?
Yeah, but the lesson is your invention.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? Right? Where in my childhood, let's be honest, am I crying as a child right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm feeling this pain that is masking off love, covering up love. Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.